Hi, my name is Ellie Sutton.
And I'm Lillian Clark. Today we're going to talk about the article School, University, Community Pathways to Higher Education, Teacher Perceptions, School Culture, and Partnership Building by Enrique Aleman Jr., Juan Freire, Ashley McKinney, and Dolores Delgado Bernal.
Perfect. So we will start off with the summary portion of this article. And this article is really about the partnership between elementary schools and universities. And this is to encourage a college-going culture. Um, to do this, there are a few things that schools have done to introduce the concept of college and demonstrate some of its benefits. These include things such as field trips to the university, students mentoring with people of color, and parent learning initiatives. And these three things are the vital things that they have been working on and just wanting to develop so that they really can have that culture of college-going students. Unfortunately, there were many of these teachers in elementary schools that they saw this partnership more as a one-way relationship. And so rather than the partnership being a shared responsibility, they viewed it as more of an addition to their school and not a real core component of the school's mission. And even with all that the university was doing, there were so many teachers who had low expectations for students of color due to persistent deficit thinking. And this is unfortunate because, I think a lot about the people who are just kind of basing things off of their biases and what they've known and heard from from other examples, maybe few examples in their lives, but they base it as the majority of this minority population. And so that's something that's unfortunate, but is happening. And so they blamed a student's lack of brain power for college, or the student's family's lack of value for education. These teachers often didn't think that the parents, maybe because they had less participation in the schools, they thought that the parents didn't really value education. When on the contrary, there was a lot more going on behind the scenes and back in school than teachers realized. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so this kind of deficit view focuses on what parents were not doing, and it focused on students of colors and students with, I guess, like low economic statuses that came from poor families, um, which is really sad because it kind of keeps them at that low level, if our teachers don't believe in them and um, can help them to go to college and to feel that confidence in themselves. So it's important that we kind of challenge that deficit thinking so that we can help them to break free of that low economic status and achieve things and have success in their lives. Yeah, so it's just really important that we can hold all of our students to a really high standard and expect success and academic achievement from them. It's important that we help them to build an expectation for themselves also that they will go to college, that they will have successful futures, and that they can have really cool careers, and they can be successful in school because that will take them so much further than a lot of the other little things and standards that we teach in the classroom. So Adelante, their focus was just helping start that perspective of wanting to go to college and being successful in college from like a super young age, even from kindergarten, so that all of our students can have that expectation for success and to achieve highly. And I think it's really important that as teachers, even though we always kind of have that hope that they will go to college and that they will continue to seek out higher education, we forget to hold those conversations with our students. So yeah, this article talked about that teachers need to have intentional conversations. We need to go on field trips to the classrooms. We need to bring in college students who can talk about their education experience so that our students can just be familiar with that process and have confidence when it gets to be their turn.
Yeah, I love that. We will now move on to the praxis portion of this. And one thing that I really want to apply when I'm teaching, I would really love to incorporate this idea of making sure that every student is aware of just a few things. One specifically, that they're aware of what college is. A lot of the times it's this foreign concept, this place in another state, something that can only be achieved through test scores or grades and things like that. Um, and there are a lot of things such as words that float around that they just aren't even introduced to until very later in life, such as FAFSA and grants and scholarships, words that kind of just go over their head. So if we were able to explain what those are and what it means, then I feel like that would help the students a lot. Another thing that I'd love to incorporate is what can be accomplished because of going to college. So it's not also just a foreign concept of go there, okay, great, but what can be accomplished? What are different jobs and career paths that require college? There's a lot of times where teachers will talk about, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, great, that's awesome. But like, how do you get there? And so that's something that I think is really important to point out. And just how to get to college. What are things that are required? What are the things that need to be done? Kind of like I mentioned before, a lot of the times it's getting specific test scores, writing essays, applications, things like that. And so just making sure that they're aware of not just college in general, but the different hows and whys and what's. And when I heard Dr. Frede talking about this, about taking his students on a field trip to universities or having college students coming to his classroom, I just love this idea, so that they really can have that real hands-on experience.
hmm Yes, I also want to make sure that my students start from just like a really young age knowing more about college and what it takes to get there so that they can have that expectation for themselves and also that parents can know kind of what that process looks like and they can support their children in that. Also, something that I want to apply is avoiding an us-them perspective. I thought that was really interesting in this article between the schools and the Adelante program sponsors. And I just want to avoid that type of perspective of me versus them or we're different or we're separated with any of the groups of people I talk to. That might be me as a teacher versus the parents or me as a teacher versus the students or the administrators or social activist groups and people who are trying to help. Because in reality, all of those different groups are trying to help my students, and so am I. So I just want to make sure that I avoid that perspective, and I can see these people as my partners and my helpers instead of like enemies to work against or people who don't understand me because they might have a different perspective, but it's going to be a helpful perspective, and it's part of the puzzle piece that is, save us and help us overcome this problem and help our students.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. Okay, so now we will move on to the reflection portion. Overall, I've really loved this article and I found it very insightful. It does make me sad that there are still a lot of teachers who look at students through a lens of color and through their biased lenses. But it also gives me hope to know and think about what I can do in the future. And so I felt like there's a lot of different examples and action steps that we can take as teachers. And I love when articles do that versus just here's a bunch of problems, We're told to be um, problem solvers rather than just problem seekers. So I really love that article for this.
Yeah, I also really liked this article. I thought it was actually kind of empowering to think about the difference that us as teachers can make, even from like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, in helping our students to achieve college and be successful so much further down the line than we'll actually, be with them in the classroom. So I thought that that was really, really cool. And it's so important that we have conversations as teachers while we're learning and preparing to think about these problems and how we can help our students to be successful throughout their lives. And challenge these, I guess, traditions that have happened in the past where we think deficitly about families, because that is a really big problem in our communities. And I've heard that in real life, those types of ideas and thoughts being tossed around. So I like this article. I appreciated the perspective, and I think it's an important topic to talk about and learn about.